Well, I reached a decision on what to do with this cigarette lighter adapter to be used within a insert for charging cell phones and other items on this motorcycle. I decided that I'm going to put it positive to positive, negative to negative. This will be completely independent of the rest of the motorcycle's electrical system. So it's not grounded at all per se. Okay? So, should work. And that's just the way it is. So now that takes us back over to this bike and talking about positive ground to as compared to negative ground and why one is better than the other. I won't even go there, but I'll give you my thoughts on it. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the tripod and tell you what I think about positive versus negative ground. All right, I hope this audio is okay. I put the microphone on. So let's talk about positive and negative ground. When I was asked the question recently, I decided to do some Googling. So I did some Googling and I asked the Google to find out give me a comparison of negative ground versus positive ground electrical systems and why and wherefore. And I got back about, I'd say 20, 30 different articles, and I read a lot of them. And the one thing, first of all, there's a lot of disagreement either way. But the one thing they sort of did agree on is that way back in the beginning of automotive manufacturing, they discovered that positive ground electrical systems on automobiles helped reduce corrosion that happened in the frame and bodywork versus the amount of corrosion that occurred in vehicles that had negative ground systems. And they give a real nice scientific reason about the size of the metal versus the size of the wires versus the swing of the ding dong and I don't know what all. And now keep in mind, these decisions were made back in the late 40s or early 50s up until the 1960s when they everybody went to 12 volt electrical systems. And at that point in time, they standardized with negative ground on 12 volt systems. There are reasons for going to 12 volts over 6 volts, even though 6 volts theoretically provided more cranking power for a longer time than 12 volt systems did. That's another story for another time. So they went to negative ground on all American and European, basically all the cars all agreed that they would do negative ground electrical systems. And, except the British, they kept doing positive ground for, a long time. So these bikes are positive ground. And the biggest reason they did that, as I say, was corrosion. Well, that's not a reason for these bikes. If there's corrosion on these bikes, it's because they've been left out in the rain too much. So the amount of corrosion that could be prevented by going to a negative ground or a positive ground system is negligible. So the real question is, who's going to be working on the bikes? So if you have a privately owned bike by a private owner who's a good mechanic and knows electrical systems, knows what the components do, the rectifiers, the regulators, the Zener diodes, understands current flow and things like that, if that privately owned bike is owned by somebody who understands electrical systems, go ahead and modify it. Change it over to negative so you're compatible with the rest of the world. I don't care. Actually, I do care. If you bring it to me, I won't work on it. But to change it over to negative ground so that other mechanics are comfortable, that's a lousy reason. Do you really want to take your Norton to a Harley shop, Honda shop, Kawasaki shop, Suzuki shop, any other manufacturer shop? Do you really want to take your Norton there? I mean, they don't know British motorcycles. They don't have a full toolbox of nothing but special tools for British motorcycles. They don't know the intricacies and the bits and pieces. And if you ask them, do they have Whitworth wrenches and Whitworth sockets, they'll say, huh? No, but I do have vice grips and slip joint pliers and adjustable wrenches. These are not Whitworth. So you really don't want to convert your bike to negative ground so that brand X mechanics can work on it. You don't want brand X mechanics working on it at all for any reason, electrical or otherwise. So bottom line is, if a bike tries to come into my shop and I find out that it was converted to negative ground, the only way I'll let it into the shop is for the owner to allow me to put it back to negative ground, put it back to positive ground, because that's what I'm comfortable with. Now, here's the problem. Old guys like me are dying off. There used to be 4, 5, 6 people in the Phoenix area who were really good with British motorcycles. And they passed away, retired, went away, just gave up. Right now, as far as I know, Kevin and I are pretty much the only game in town. And we work on positive ground because we're comfortable with it. And I am not willing to reverse my thinking in order to work on a bike that has a negative ground. It's just not worth reversing the way I think for an individual bike. So the bottom line is, and there goes the copter, and tell me he's at flight minimums. I guarantee he's not at flight minimums. Okay, so anyway, I don't care if there's an advantage to negative. I don't care if there's an advantage to positive. I will only work on bikes with positive ground. People who know British motorcycles, I think, would prefer positive ground. On your own privately owned motorcycle that you yourself maintain, I don't care if you change it to negative ground. Just don't bring it to me, because I won't work on it. I don't know what Kevin's ruling on that is, but I'm pretty sure he thinks the same way I do. Positive ground or we don't work on it. So once again, is positive ground better than negative ground? Is negative ground better than positive ground? The answer to the question is, I don't care. I really, honest to God, don't care. I just won't work on a bike with negative ground. So that's the bottom line. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of this video or not. I'm going to put this adapter onto the bike directly to the battery with positive to positive, negative to negative. That will make this a negative ground receptacle for anything they want to plug into it, and completely independent of the bike's electrical system, which is still positive ground. So, which is better? What's the old saying? Ignorance and apathy. I don't know, and I don't care. I just prefer that the bikes be left in their original positive ground, and that's just the way it is. Okay, that's it. Opinion. Anybody wants to tell me I'm wrong, say la vie. I don't care. Anybody wants to say I'm right, say la vie. I don't care. Do what you will with your own privately owned motorcycle. I don't care. But bikes in my shop are going to be positive ground when they go out, no matter what ground system they were in when they came in. Because I'm not going to reverse my thinking just for the odd bike every now and then. That's it. That's the difference. Okay, a quick addendum to the previous tirade. Yes, I do know that some of the late model Triumphs, 78, 79, in that range, were made with negative ground electrical systems. And no, I won't force those people to allow me to change those systems to positive ground. And yes, I've had some in here, and yes, I've worked on them. And if more came in, yes, I'd work on them. It wouldn't be fair for me to make them change a factory negative ground to a positive ground just because I don't like them. So I wouldn't do that. So my tirade is against systems that have been changed to negative ground from positive ground so that brand X mechanics are comfortable working on the bike. Bad reason. So, yay, verily, I understand late model trumpets came in negative ground system, and no, I would not force him to let me change them back or change them to positive ground. That just wouldn't be nice. No, I wouldn't do that. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this little addendum.